Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. Today we're going to talk about the Liga MX playoffs. We're going to talk about the Club World Cup, and we're going to talk a little bit about El Tri at the very end. And of course, there were the big news from last week regarding the World Cup draw. But before we get into that, let me introduce tonight's guest. Over in Mexico City, we have Naib Moran. Naib, how you doing, man?
Buenas noches, Cesar. Tom, another season that is about to come to an end. I mean, I think with these short seasons that we have in Mexico, sometimes everything seems to go so fast. You know, we got a year and we got 2 seasons to focus on. And it's just interesting how one season to the other, a lot of things can change, no?
Yeah.
I mean, just a couple of months ago, we are talking a lot about Chivas. Now Chivas didn't even make the Liguilla. And now it's Tigres is back in a final, and they're gonna face their arch rival, their arch nemesis, or however you want to call it, Monterrey. So I mean, it's how quickly everything can change in Liga MX.
And then over in Guadalajara, we have Tom Marshall, who actually recently hosted Naib, if I remember correctly. You guys were hanging out for the weekend. I'm jealous. I wanted to hang out. How come I didn't get an invite, guys?
You're always invited to Sir. You're always invited. Quick flight from Tijuana to Guadalajara, no problem.
Boom, easy.
No, yeah. Just not this weekend or the one. No, all good. Yeah, all good. Good semi-finals. I mean, they weren't the most entertaining, I don't suppose. Especially, I thought they were so one-sided. But I think the benefit of that is actually what we're going to experience over the next few days, which is this rare occurrence where you get the two best teams in the league over a short tournament. Numbers 1 and 2 in terms of points, numbers 1 and 2 in terms of average attendance. The best teams, I think, most objective analysis would come to that inclusion, player for player, and that's what we're going to experience over Thursday and Sunday in Mexico's best rivalry for me. So this for me is as good as it gets with the Liga MX.
I mean, it's a final that everyone wanted. I know, like you said, Tom, it's usually a little difficult to predict the final two in any season, but with this one, it seemed at least very clear that Monterrey was going to be making the final. And speaking of the final, that leads us to our big question of the day. So the question is, if he put together a Liga MX best 11, how many of the 11 would not be featured in the Clásico Regio final? Naib, how many would not be featured in the Clásico Regio?
No, I mean, I think I was just looking back at the best 11 from the 2017 Clausura, no, and on goal it was Cota, on the right back was Chapito, center back was Nestor, Araujo, and Juninho, and then as left back was Luis Reyes. Midfielders were Dueñas, Guido Rodriguez, Avilés Hurtado back in the day when he was with Cholos, and then up front you had Pulido, Gignac, and Ruidiaz. I think nowadays there'll be more inclusion of players from Monterrey in that 11 that I just said. I think the block stays with those players from. You got to add Ener Valencia, for example, from Tigres now into the mix. Hugo Gonzalez had a stupendous semis against Morelia, so he becomes a contender. So I mean, I think it's just like 1 or 2 spaces.
Yeah.
Maybe that miraculously could appear for someone else to be in that ideal 11. No, specifically looking at this season, and names that stand out. I mean, I think Pablo Aguilar from America might get a shot, perhaps. And someone perhaps I had Gutierrez, but I think I'll discard him because Pachuca didn't even make the Liguilla.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm telling you. I mean, it's just difficult right now. A name that wasn't in last season's 11 was Carlos Sanchez, and Carlos Sanchez has been amazing this season. So it could potentially be an all Tigres Monterrey 11, and perhaps maybe 1 space will be left. No.
Yeah, Tom, what would your 11 look like? Would it all be players from Monterrey and Tigres?
I think it'd be dominated by those two clubs. I think you look at the lines of the team, and obviously up front, I think both these teams. I mean, this is one of the aspects about the final. I mean, you look at the forward three for each two of these teams, and it's they're incredible. You know, Eduardo Vargas, Gignac, and Ene Valencia. You know, for Tigres, and on the other side, Aviles Hurtado, Funes Mori, who's in for me the form of his life, and you know, missing out Dolan Pavon. So yeah, I think those three. I think you make that between Tigres and Monterrey. You know, I think in terms of the midfield, central midfield, I think maybe, you know, there's some options in there. You know, Marcelo Diaz didn't have the greatest time when he came to Pumas, but I think on paper he could challenge for the holding midfield role. Carioca, I think, has gone from strength to strength, to be fair, with Tigres, though. So, you know, it's not like he should be completely ruled out. But yeah, aside from that, you know, I think Pablo Aguilar from America was playing really, really well. I think in goal, I think that's an area where, you know, I really like Nahuel Guzman. I mean, I just think he's so entertaining. I think he brings a lot of characters to the position. But I can completely understand how people out there just think he's a bit of a joker. I mean, he is. That's what I like about it.
Not in my 11, man. He's not in my 11.
No. And then Hugo Gonzalez, yeah, he's playing well, but I don't think he's up there right now. I think he's got a way to go before he's challenging to be one of the best goalkeepers in this league, because, you know, Talavera when he's back, Volpe is there, you know, Martesín I thought was very, very good for America, even though they went out. So there's plenty of options in the goalkeeping department as well. So I'd probably go maybe 3 out of the 11 for other players.
Yeah, no, and then another one, perhaps Elias Hernandez, you know, who had a good regular season, perhaps didn't stand out that much in the Liguilla as one would have hoped for, you know, because it was an important moment for him. But, you know, the names that we're mentioning, there's not that many Mexicans, no? I think that's pretty obvious. In selecting a Mexican player that stood out this season, I mean, you could say Peralta, but you could say Victor Guzman from Pachuca. We didn't mention him up, which were strange cases. No, they're basically outliers.
Yeah, I mean, Elias Hernandez would be in mine. I know he didn't have the best playoffs, but just the run that he had during the regular season stood out to me. And then, yeah, I don't know if we already talked about him. I don't know if you guys already mentioned, but I mean, maybe Boselli, maybe Sosa. After that, I mean, it's all players from the Monterrey region for me. I mean, it's easy. I think it seems like consensus for the three of us that it would be dominated. It would easily be dominated by those two teams. Let's see. So let's. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I mean, yeah, it is. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many ways to say it, but it is. I don't know. I think we're seeing, and it'll be interesting to see if you agree, because it's so. I feel like the way the Liga MX works. I mean, I think Marco Garces was given an interview the other day. I think with Medio Tiempo, and he said it's really hard to mark, like, to have a team that marks an epocha, you know, an epoch basically, in Liga MX, because of the system, because it's not just a playoff system. You know, like MLS at the minute, we're seeing, you know, Seattle Sounders, and then before that we had the Galaxy, and because it's a long season, I don't know. I think it's more there's more consistency. But whereas, like Naib was mentioning there with Chivas, like very good last season, champions this season, what, 12th, 13th? I mean, that's a big drop. So I think it's really difficult. But I think what we're tentatively seeing now is two teams opening up a gap at the top of Liga MX. And you know, and that's not going to say Monterrey are going to win 3 titles in the next 6 years and Tigres are going to win 3 in the next 6 years, because it's impossible with the way this playoff format is. You know, a red card here and there and you're out. I mean, it just doesn't forgive you. But honestly, I think that there are signs now, with the investment that these two teams have put into the squads, with the way they're playing, the way they back their managers, you know, because even Monterrey with Mohamed, there were times where Monterrey could have got rid of Mohamed and they backed him over a player, and specifically the case of Edwin Cardona.
Yeah.
So I think that, I don't know, I think we're seeing something quite a bit remarkable here in Liga MX, where we're seeing two clubs almost move away slightly now from the rest of them.
I think what's interesting to note too is when you look at the two teams right behind them, I'm just talking about this season, you look at America. America is going to have to make significant changes over the winter. They're going to have to make significant changes during the next season. And I think at Morelia, even though they finished at a impressive spot in the league table, I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't able to hold on to some of those players. If some of those players made a move to to a bigger team. So it is interesting to note that just the difference between what Tigres and Monterrey are doing and what the rest of the league is doing at the moment.
No, there's a consolidation with Tigres, no, as well. I think Tigres, what is 3 finals in a row in Liga MX. I mean, that doesn't happen often, and even though they haven't won all of them, I sense that the fact that Ferretti has so much control over that whole institution, as to everything sort of revolves around Tuca, and you bring him in all these quality players. I mean, some way or another, he has to make it work. And I think this season in specifically was really complicated for Tigres because the departure of Guido Pizarro left a huge void in the middle. And I think that's why the start of the season was quite slow for the type of team that Tigres is. But as the season moved forward, once we got into the Liguilla, that's when we saw Tigres step up to the occasion, no? And there's a strong Mexican presence in Tigres as well, which is really interesting to compare really what Piojo Herrera mentioned after the elimination against Tigres, is that we have to Mexicanize the club because we really don't have that much good Mexican options. Well, Tigres does have good Mexican options, even though they might not be your star-studded 5-star players, but to have dueñas there, Aquino, Ayala, Chaca, consistent players, Mexican players, I think that's also one of the qualities that stands out in Tigres. With Monterrey, you could say it's more foreign-based, although that, the apparitions of Cesar Montes and Jonathan Gonzalez say a lot about Turco Mohamed as a coach, as to have that power or that sense or that eye to give a shot to these youngsters, and they're going to step up. I mean, I think I was looking at the stats yesterday, and I think Cesar Montes is the last Mexican that scored a goal in a Clásico Regio. So I think that tells you a little bit of how foreign-based Monterrey is. And with Tigres, I think because of Tuca Ferretti and all these years that he's been there, he's been able to make a good blend of Mexican talent and foreign talent.
Well, let's talk about Mohamed. I mean, Tom, is Mohamed getting enough credit for the way he's shaped Monterrey? I mean, they were dominant in the semifinal series. Is he getting enough credit for what he did in the recent matches?
I mean, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I've not heard anybody say anything negative about him. I think that he's shaped his team into his image. I think it's taken time, to be honest. I think he's just a club. Also time to, especially when Mohamed's job was under threat, and it didn't look, and it was frustrating even for. I think on the Mexican Soccer Show we talked about why can't Monterrey play as well as the talent suggests they could. I mean, we definitely said that. So it has been a slow process, but he's got all the pieces now into gear. I think it's very different from the system. The idea, the playing idea is substantially different from what we see at Tigres, because from Tigres it's all about having the ball, and Monterrey is very much it's a direct form of playing. I mean, they win the ball back as quickly as they can. It's kind of modern in that regard, and the team works extremely hard, especially if you see him live, which I did a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of the things that kind of that really stood out, to be honest, that I didn't know before, if you know what I mean. And they hunt impacts when they're pressing, and they're very good at that. But yeah, I think that they're a big team as well. I mean, Funes Mori as a number 9 is a big guy, and I think that helps as well. You look at the two massive centre backs. Nico Sanchez and Asanta. Carlos Sanchez isn't a small guy. I mean, they've got quite a big team as well. Stefan Medina, who was a centre back, who can play at centre back, but been featuring at right back. So yeah, I think he's implemented his style, and he's had a lot of money behind him. I mean, there's no shame in saying they've thrown a lot of money on foreign players. I mean, people are gonna not like that. Let's be honest. I mean, basically in that Monterrey team, there's probably one player who's eligible. Well, not eligible, but one player who could play for Mexico in the Gonzalez. I mean, Jonathan Gonzalez is a great talent, 18 years old, but unfortunately for the Mexican national team, it looks like he's gonna choosing the United States. So, I mean, it goes on to that debate today about Antonio Briseño over there in Portugal, and Monterrey's president came out and said, we get criticized in Mexico for having this team, and there's not hardly any Mexicans, but Real Madrid do it, and everybody praises them, and it's like, yeah, but and Pollo Briseño said that's a different world over there. Like that's not fair, because, for example, a Spanish player can go and play in England, can go and play in the Netherlands, in other places, whereas the Mexican player, it doesn't have that freedom of movement that the EU has. So I agree. I mean, it is difficult. I mean, you look at the team against against Morelia, and you had five Argentines, and one Mexican-born player. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends what you want. But
and it's a spectacle. I mean, I think when people, a neutral fan, sees Tigres or Monterrey, I mean, it feels different, because of the talent that's on the field, the display of it. And I think the aspirations of Liga MX in the last years has been sort of to have more cases of Monterrey and Tigres. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they're trying to reintegrate this. Is it the 2011? What was that rule?
Yeah, 2011.
2011, ¿verdad? And it was because it was disappearing, and there was more push for this. But it's also the selection, no? It's about having a lot of foreigners, but also the selection. Because, for example, in America, you see someone like Silvio Romero, Darwin Quintero, specifically Darwin Quintero, who did well in Santos, but has never been able to transcend in America. So it's sort of different level of budget, It's because what I was thinking this morning was a couple of years ago when Chucho Benitez came back from, I think it was Birmingham, he came to America, and now Ener Valencia, who had a similar case to Chucho Benitez, it started in Mexico, then went to England, didn't succeed there, but he came to Tigres. I mean, so that tells you a little bit of the changes, the balance of powers now. Tigres is doing the moves that America might have been able to do 10 years ago. And it sets a new precedent of things. And it looks like America's not competing with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the rumor as well. I mean, America denied it, Televisa denied it, but it looks like Televisa might not have the money to compete at that level. And that's not saying they don't have any money, because, they're still signing important players, let's be honest. It's not like they're not spending any money. They definitely have done. I mean, Oribe Peralta wasn't cheap, for example.
Yeah, and Guido Rodriguez and Mateus Uribe weren't cheap either, Tom.
Not at all.
Not all cheap, but is it another level? And then you look at another one of the Mexico's big four, Pumas, and that rumor has been going on for a long time. Like, can Pumas compete? And it's not just going out and buying Marcelo Diaz, because at the end of the day, how much did he get for Sosa? Ismael Sosa, who went to Tigres to sit on the bench. I mean, that's the level that these, the way that Pumas, and I think that Sosa example is good, the way that Tigres is ready to poach Sosa from Pumas and then just to stick him on the bench is, and now there's the rumor that he might go back. I mean, it tells you something about the power of Tigres, I think.
I think I know we could talk about Monterrey and Tigres for a while, but I think if we're looking at the semifinal series, one thing we need to talk about is Morelia. Morelia, I think for me, they exceeded expectations. I don't think many of us could have predicted that they finished where they did. And you do wonder if next season what the team is going to look like. Are they going to incorporate some new players? Are they going to let go of some key players? Because you imagine some teams are probably eyeing Valdez. They're probably eyeing Sosa. They're probably eyeing a favorite of mine is Carlos Guzman. Or Rui Diaz, of course. I know how we could forget about him. But what are our thoughts on Morelia?
Man, I mean, I think that's it feeds into the same thing we're talking about. What Grupo Azteca, the owners of Morelia, what are they? I mean, what are they here for? I mean, Morelia, they've got to the semi-final. That's a great season for Morelia. But you look at the team now, and it's like you said, Cesar, you mentioned those names, and you've got a platform. What are you going to do with it? And I think too many times in Liga MX, what we see, especially from these smaller clubs, is that it just gets dismantled. And it's the same up there with you, Cesar, in Cholos.
Yeah, Cholos is the best example, probably.
Yep, exactly. I mean, it just seems like it makes sense. Some of these players are going to leave. So it just that seems like the most rational answer here, right? We think that a couple of these bigger teams are probably eyeing a couple of these noteworthy guys, like I said, like Sosa, like Guzman, like Valdez, like perhaps Rui Diaz as well.
No, but I think what Morelia did was really phenomenal. I mean, because when you see, for example, the squads that Pachuca and Chivas have, you would assume that they would have made the Liguilla, not a team like Morelia. I mean, I know Morelia, maybe we're being too underestimated a little bit too much because, at the end of it all, they got Ruiz, who was a great poacher in the box, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other big teams in Mexico would want to have someone like Ruiz, someone like Diego Valdez as well, So having those two talents and building around them could make Morelia into a competitive side that not only that this wasn't just a surprise that it reached the semis this season, that it can be more consistent, but also they just don't have the financial power that these two that we're talking about, the Regio teams.
We mentioned those names like Valdez and Ruiz, and they'll get big money in the market because of their ages as well. But yeah, I look at some of the Morelia players in that second leg. I know it's at Monterrey. I know it's a place where everybody goes and basically loses, but I thought they were showing up. They look nervous. Yeah. And you look at a player like, Chino Millar, who back in the Bielsa days with the Chilean national team was a great player. When he came and played for Atlas, I really, really liked him. But he's a player who's based his game on his engine, He's 36 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many years you can't get many more years out of Rodrigo Millar. Yeah. Gerardo Rodriguez, remember, 32 years old, played for Chivas, played for, I believe, Puebla. I mean, Pachuca, Toluca, Morelia. And he's not the kind of player that I think is gonna
get you to that next level,
or even someone like Sepulveda. Like I think he exceeded expectations a little bit during the playoffs, but that's just, I don't know if that's a guy you want to rely on. I just don't think that I think you need to have, and that's something that I keep thinking about. Is Morelia fans are probably asking themselves, okay, so we did well this season, we made it to playoffs, we made it to the semis. That's excellent for them. But what was missing from the team this season? Like what? And I think, Tom, you kind of focused on that a little bit. Some of those players that need to be replaced. That looking forward, that hopefully management or ownership will be thinking of finding some alternatives for them.
Well, you get the base of this Morelia team, and you have 3-4 players, and then you go at it next season, and you go in there as a team that on the brink of making the playoffs. I think this season they played really well as well, but it looks like they've got a stable manager now. Go out there, buy a 3 or 4 really, good players. Obviously, it was the collective game as well that really stood out with Morelia. It wasn't like, they don't have a Aviles Hurtado who can sort games out for you. Don't get me wrong. Valdez is a good player. Ruiz is a good player, but someone like Ruiz needs chances. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's what I think about Morelia. I thought at the end of the day against Monterrey they were showing up, to be honest.
Yeah,
a great season. I quite like the way they play, but you have to keep improving. And I just fear now that Morelia, now that relegation's a bit more distant as well, let's see where the Grupo Azteca put the money, because let's not forget Grupo Azteca is also funding Atlas. Yep. So, and Atlas, they consider the bigger club. I mean, everything points towards at some point Grupo Azteca selling Morelia.
I was going to say that
because go on.
I would say that's the question for me, is that like I can see where they can improve, but for me the big question is if Morelia will make, or if they're going to get those big signings that are necessary. I just can't imagine. In my mind, I just don't see that happening. I see them letting go of players. I don't see them bringing in maybe more marquee names that can bring it on to that, can perhaps sneak them into the final.
No, I can't see it. It's difficult sell. I mean, I don't think they pay as much wages as other clubs either. So it's an hard sell. I mean, it's a smaller club that needs to, it needs to create something special as a collective to move forward. And I don't know, is the will there, or is the will basically from the owners just to keep this team in the league and keep the investment going? I don't know. It's very difficult. But again, going back to the Monterrey and Tigres, it's not easy. It's not easy to say, throw down a bit of investment and then you can be a top team, because they've thrown down so much money, Tigres and Monterrey. I mean, for someone like Morelia to go out and get a strike force, even approaching the level of Tigres, Ene Valencia, Vargas and Gignac. I mean, you just can't imagine it happening. You know what I mean? It's just impossible to think that's going to happen. And I think that goes through for a lot of teams. And like going back to the same thing, I think we're seeing that that gap now develop. And the other interesting one that I'm sure we're going to talk about is Club America. I mean, what happens now with Club America? Because for me, they were very much second best against Tigres. There was a dominant team in that series, and it was Tigres.
Yeah, let's talk about that other semifinal series, because obviously, Rayados, they just completely steamrolled Morelia. They got a 5-0 aggregate win. But Tigres also, I mean, thanks to a couple of Reds in that recent game, Tigres were able to get a 4-0 aggregate victory over America. And Tom, you were just talking about America, so let's jump into America a little bit since we've talked about Tigres for a bit. What changes need to happen for America? And I'll go to Naive on this. Because that's something that, I mean, I saw a lot of hot takes online. I was part of it. I made a couple of hot takes on Twitter. Like, what
hot takes, sister?
My hot take is just that there needs to be, I mean, serious changes. I don't know if that's. I don't know if it was that. Whatever. I don't know if it was that serious. It was a mild take. It was a lukewarm take, is I guess what I should say.
Yeah.
Naive, what changes need to be made, man? What does America need to do?
No, I think what was really astonishing about this Liguilla run for America was the fact that they didn't score a goal. And that kind of tells you a little bit of how if you can't
more
score
Reds than goals.
Yeah, more Reds than goals. Four Reds, and it was 2 for Edson and 2 for Guido. To start off, it was 2 Reds to start off the Liguilla, and it was two Reds to end the Liguilla. So I mean, I think it was a grim display in that regard. They qualified to the semis because of the positioning on the table, and because of the stupendous start to the season that they had. Because at the start of the season, there was hope for something special, and as the season moved along, it slowly faded away. I think at the start of the season, there was this light of hope that Cecilio Dominguez was going to be able to, be that player, be that difference maker on the field in crucial moments. And at the end, he didn't even play anymore. And there's, rumors that he's going to leave the club because, there's no chemistry between him and Piojo Herrera. There were certain players, others like William da Silva, who wasn't at his best, at his finest form, I would say, compared to a year ago when he was a key player with La Volpe. The Pablo Aguilar situation, health issue that he had in the semis was also really unexpected, and it hurt, I think, America's equilibrium overall, I would say, because, we saw, for example, in the second leg that even though Edson Alvarez is a huge talent, he still lacks a bit of that, maturity, responsibility on the field that perhaps someone like Pablo Aguilar could offer to the defensive line. There was positives. I think the positives, when you have players like the thing, I don't know how to say it, but I still consider Guido Rodriguez a positive. Yeah. I mean, I just think that he has to figure something out with the red card situation. But
he's an incredible
player. He has a lot of, he imposes a lot of power in the midfield. Yeah. But he easily loses control of it sometimes.
He's still really young, though, so I think that's what he has in his favor. This isn't some guy at 28, 29, or his early 30s. This is a guy, I think he's 22 or 23, so he's still a young guy. This is something he can work on.
Yeah, Mateus Uribe was also a positive, I think, at the end. Uribe was kind of the player that was trying to create things for America. And I think we saw the end of Darwin Quintero and Silvio Romero, in the offense. I think they got all the chances they could this season with Herrera. Herrera was always so supportive to both of them, but they didn't respond to that support on the field. And I think Herrera will remember that. But then again, this winter transfer window is really complicated. I think it's to make a max amount of moves in this period of time won't be easy for America. And I think that's going to be something to note, but then again, Piojo Herrera returns to America this season, and it at least leads the club to the semis, which is an area where, of course, over here, Americanista says that the minimum is to reach the final, but with this type of squad and all the injuries, I think the semis is a good end.
Yeah, especially when you consider all those Reds. You consider those 4 Reds, and I think
stupid red cards as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, Naive, you talked about Guido Rodriguez. I think he is a fantastic player, but that was, I think, the watershed moment for me in the second leg. I think it was kind of a dull, first half. in that second leg. Obviously, Tigres pushed at the very end, but after Guido got that red, the series was over for me, and it just went downhill very, very, very quickly for America.
Yeah. I mean, it's what Naib said. There's certain players the futures need sorting out. Romero, Quintero.
Yeah.
They need sorting, and they need sorting really, really quickly. Ibarra has not really done anything, has he? Really,
no, I mean, good speed, but no momentous occasion, no.
Yeah.
I mean, Lainez, to be honest, hasn't lived up to the hype. And it's easy to say, and it's true. He's only 17. He's not gonna. Yeah, he's only played about 280 minutes this season. He's not scored a goal yet. And I'm not saying he's not going to make it, and that would be ridiculous. But I think we expected more. I think what role is he going to play with Club America?
Yeah,
I think we need to.
No, it's taking that risk also, Tom. Is do you play for Linus? Yeah. Do you build your team around to make him a better player? I mean, then again, also he had the U17 World Cup in India, which kind of hindered a little bit the process. And the I think more or less not the process, but running more games with Piojo Herrera, giving him more test runs, because with Herrera it seemed that he always put him on the left flank, on the left wing, and I think Linus has the potential to play in the center and have a more of a free role, behind the striker. But he's young, he's still 17.
No, yeah, definitely. It's just that you want to see him keep advancing. I felt like this season he's stagnated. I mean, compared to what we saw last season, he definitely stagnated. And he had the World Cup as well. But what do America want? What kind of club are America? And I think we're going to see that with how they treat Linus, to be honest. We've seen Cecilio Dominguez. It's not worked out. He's not even, I know he's picked up an injury, but I'm not 100% sure how injured he is, to be honest. If you read between the lines of what's happened there. But yeah, I mean, on the positive side, you've got the midfield, like you said, Guido Rodriguez and Uribe. I think really good midfield partnership. Moved forward for a couple of years, to be honest. And I think you got a good goalkeeper, a few good centre backs, and it's just. I don't need a bit of time to sort out these issues. I don't think it's
and a fullback issue too, Tom. I mean, I think we're seeing the end of the Paul Aguilar era. No, I think he's beginning to fade off, and I think that's an area where America has to change. I mean, it's been an Aguilar area for many years, and I think now you're seeing the start of the beginning of the end. No, with a Paul Aguilar.
Do you think you could say the same thing on the other side? I mean, it's not just Paul Aguilar at right back, maybe on left back too. Maybe they just America just needs an overhaul of their fullbacks in general.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah, no, there's quite a few issues, without doubt. The one thing I think we have to point out though is that America got 30 points in the regular season. Like America reached the semi-final. America, okay, they didn't do well against Tigres. They exploded with those 2 red cards, but they were in the game until the last 30 minutes. You know what I mean? And I think that the criticism rains down a little bit. It's not unfair, but it's just like sometimes we forget that they've actually had quite a good season. I mean, for American fans, if you don't win the title, it's not a good season. But from and I'm taking a step back and having a look, it's not been a terrible season considering Herrera just came back and there were obvious problems with his squad. They haven't been able to get Darwin Quintero. Why? Because he makes a lot of money, and everything points to him going to MLS.
Yep.
Less club are going to pay what Club America does. Unless they make him a designated player and all that. It's just it's difficult. It's a difficult one for.
As we're chatting right now, I'm trying to pick up names of possible arrivals, and I remember at the beginning of this season that there was rumors that Luis Reyes from Atlas was going to arrive to America. I think a player like Luis Reyes could potentially arrive to America because it fits that bill that I was saying at the start of the show that Herrera wants to Mexicanize the club. I mean, I think Herrera sees it and, man, why do I need a left back, a foreigner, when I can have a left back, a Mexican player in that slot, And I think it could be a good arrival, and it would also, someone like Reyes. I don't think it's over with him, I think if he's able to come into a club like America and do great things, it will be actually beneficial for the national team, because as we saw, it's just Layun as a left back option, no?
All right, guys, let's we're about 38 minutes into the show. Let's preview the final Tom, for those who don't know, talk about how important this is, regardless of the tactics, regardless of the players. How important is it that we're going to have, and how exciting is it that we're going to have this a rivalry match for the title?
Well, it's exciting for the region of Nuevo León, Northern Mexico, and tickets are selling for the first leg $400 on StubHub. For the second leg, $1,100. So it gives you, I don't know, just it tells you how much this game means for people from up there. I think because it's a regional rivalry, there's a bit of chip on the shoulder. They believe in Monterrey that this is the best game in Mexico. I think most people, I agree with that. I think most people who would as well. But you do get a section of the Mexican media who don't like, almost you get the sense they don't like these Monterrey clubs doing what they've done. Because especially the media in Mexico City, who obviously the capitalinos, they're a bit more arrogant about them, because Mexico's divided between provincia and capital. I mean, there's a rivalry between both. So to see, all of not one finalist from Mexico City this year, I think hurts people from Mexico City, and to see what's going to be, for me, the greatest final for quite a while in Liga MX, I think is going to hurt them as well. I mean, I think we've had we will have had two great finals this year, but the fact that this is a rivalry game, I just think adds to it, and I just think it's going to be a really good advert for Liga MX, especially the second leg where you've got that unbelievable stadium up there in Guadalupe, Monterrey, and with the greatest quality you could want in terms of the Mexican First Division on display. So sit back, enjoy.
At least from the U.S. perspective, I'm really fascinated to see what the ratings will be like for that second leg. Just because, I mean, in general, Liga MX does tend to dominate the ratings. You'll sometimes get like for some of the big teams like like Chivas or America, you'll have those ratings would go over for like over 1 million for just like regular season matches. But this final is the one that everybody wants. This is the one that everyone has been rooting for, and I think it's gonna be fascinating just to see just how much attention, at least from the States, how much attention.
Just a little dig though. I mean, this is where the Liga MX now needs to work. This is where, like, if you have kind of an English language account, if you open your doors to foreign journalists, if you don't close your doors, if you let the people come in, I'll just give you an example. For example, I'm not being arrogant myself, but the Liga MX Femenil final, like, which, to be honest, like, I didn't have to go to. Nobody was saying you must write about this, you must go. I went there because I think it's important, because I think that it was a big game, and a big moment in Mexican football's history, to be honest. But the amount of retweets and stuff I got from my videos, the amount of people in England, in Sweden, in all over the world that were tuning into that. It gives you an insight into, and I got invited onto like podcasts and stuff, and then you're talking about the women's game in Mexico and you're promoting it, and it's sometimes that's what they don't do very well. And I think we're going to see this, something for people to watch out for, no doubt about it. With the MLS final on Saturday, the quality is going to be in Liga MX. Yep. Absolutely no doubt. The atmosphere is going to be in Liga MX. No doubt about it, especially with this final. But you watch how they build up to the games in terms of social media, in terms of hyping people up. And I guarantee you that MLS will absolutely wipe the floor with Liga MX in that term, in terms of media coverage, in terms of, let's see how many interviews the Liga MX president gives compared to the MLS chief, or whatever it's called. But you know what I mean?
The commish.
Yeah.
Naib, your thoughts in general about this upcoming final? We'll have the first leg on Thursday, second one on Sunday. Thoughts on the match?
No, I think it's an award for hard work that many people behind the scenes have been doing for many years. I think when we see the display on the pitch, the ones that tend to get the front covers and the attention of the players. But I think here a lot of applaud and recognition should be given to the people behind the scenes. I think a lot of people in Tigres and Monterrey have been working really hard to reach this moment. To see them to be so dominant has been, for me, one of the biggest sights that I've ever seen in Mexican football history. I mean, I sensed it. It was coming when Gignac arrived to to Tigres, I think that was kind of the warning, no, that we're going big for this, and we're going to try to dominate the league as much as possible.
For me, it was after that, Naive. For me, it was because of what we've seen clubs go out and get one signing before. For me, it was after that because I didn't expect him to follow it up with Vargas, with Valencia, with Sosa.
We forgot
that was
Andy,
the thing that surprised me.
Andy Delort was
no, but the thing,
was at some point.
Yeah, I think maybe the thing though with Gignac, Tom, that really struck me was that he played his best season in Europe, no, with Marcel, with Bielsa, and he could have easily gone to the Premier League after that.
Yeah.
But he selected to come to Tigres and play the Copa Libertadores final, and I think that was a huge statement. I mean, the way that the Tigres lured Gignac to come to Mexico and how Gignac accepted to come and embraced it, I think it's the word. It was really, really amazing. Unfortunately, like you said, Tom, maybe you can say that the clubs and specifically Tigres could have done a better job to take out as much juice as you can from this moment, you know, because I think they failed in that regard. You know, I think that was kind of a moment that could have opened their doors for many things that they are not that interested in. And, you know, the only thing they're interested in right now is to dominate Mexico, and I think they're going to do it. And then, you know, not to take anything away from Monterrey. I mean, Monterrey also deserves its attention. You know, getting Carlos Sanchez from River Plate is not easy, you know, because he is a player that, even though he already played in Mexico with Puebla, what he did over there in River Plate was just phenomenal, you know, and the same can be said about someone like, you know, Funes Mori, about Bangioni, Nicolas Sanchez. You know, these are strong South American players that could easily be in Europe, but they're Monterrey. But you know, I think it's an award. It's an award for the hard work that's been done for many years already. I mean, this is not something that started just when Gignac arrived. I mean, I think this was even before that, but now you're seeing the fruits of it.
Yeah, guys, let's we still got a few more things to go through in the show, so I wanna get your predictions. You know, that's what people want to know. That's what people want to hear from us. Our thoughts about what we anticipate from this upcoming this two-legged final. Tom, predictions: first leg, second leg. Who's lifting the trophy?
I'm going Monterrey, but I don't know. I don't really want to say score or anything like that. I don't think there's not much between the teams. We know that. I think
because you lost the Mexican soccer. You were out in the semis of the competition, right?
I said I don't want to talk about that. For Monterrey, I think stylistically they've got the antidote to Tigres. I think Tigres obviously love to have the ball, always the highest possession in Liga MX. Monterrey don't. I mean, Monterrey are quite happy to sit back a little bit more, to defend. And to play in a direct game, and I think that is the kind of game that trips up Tigres, to be honest. Yep. And so that's why I'm going Monterrey. What I would add just quickly that let's have a look, see how Aviles Hurtado is, not just if he's on that team sheet, but how fit he really is, because he'll be desperate to play and he'll do anything to play, but he needs to be really on it. He can't have a hamstring strain and then be, you know, injured after 15 minutes when he does his first sprint.
It takes a lot of speed away from him too, which was one of the, you know, one of his main abilities is his speed.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's it'll be interesting to see how Aviles is doing, especially because I think this could kind of I think we can all talk about who is a player this season, but if Aviles is healthy and he has a good showing in this final, I think it would solidify him as the best player of the season. You know, I think Aviles is an incredible player. I think he's a fantastic player, and just because I thoroughly enjoy watching him, I do hope that he's healthy and ready for the series. But my prediction, I'm gonna agree with Tom. I think just when you look at the style of play, when you look that this is gonna kind of work out perfectly for Rayados. So I do think that I think it's gonna be a close series. You can see Tigres gradually getting better. I know they didn't have the best regular season, but you can kind of see what they've done. I mean, you can see it in the semifinal series where they didn't allow a goal and they scored 4 goals. So it's pretty clear right there, you know, how well they've been doing. But I do think that Rayados, they're going to be, even if Aviles isn't healthy, I think Monterrey is going to lift the title. Naib, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I see 3-3 penalties. I mean, I think it's gonna be a aggregate of 3-3, and they're gonna go to penalties. And if they go to penalties, I think Tigres is gonna win it because they're really good at penalties. I mean, I think they showed that in against Pumas in 2015. They showed it against America in 2016. And I think they might show it against Tigre, against Monterrey in 2017. I mean, Nahuel is just a monster on goal when it comes to penalties.
Yeah.
And I think that's might be something, the emotions will be high, and I think it will cap off on a phenomenal final if it goes all the way to penalties.
Okay, well let's go ahead, Tom.
Just a quick interesting thing is, you got Monterrey, and I don't think they've won the league for what is it 6 years now?
Yeah,
it's been a long time. Yeah,
Something
it's
like that.
around 6, 7. Yeah, somewhere around that area.
So you've got the pressure on there. The pressure. They've got the new stadium. Obviously, they're closing out this final in the new stadium, and it's such a massive event for Rayados. Then you look at the Tigres' point of view, and we know how good Tigres have been, and they've reached a lot of finals, but they've not won a ridiculous amount, considering how dominant they've been now since really, 2005. I mean, they signed Gignac in the summer of 2015. 2015, so yeah. They lost the Libertadores final. They've lost 2 CONCACAF Champions League finals in 2016, 2017. They lost the Clausura 2017 to Chivas. And basically, they've won the Apertura 2015, Apertura 2016. It's good, don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously, this would be the 3rd consecutive title in terms of in years. But they lose this one, all of a sudden, since that big Gignac signing, you've got 5 finals lost and only 2 won. I'm not counting the Campeón de Campeones because it just doesn't have the same status. But and that then I don't know. That's going to open up some wounds into Tigres if they don't get the job done.
Yeah. Something to keep an eye on, guys. Obviously, it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be much anticipated. It's going to be, at least once again, I always like to follow ratings. I always like to follow to see, who's watching what. Easily this could be the most watched Liga MX matches. I think it'll be the most watched Liga MX matches of the year. It might break some records. It's gonna be great. I'm excited for it, guys. Let's talk about the Club World Cup. Something that we some of us we kind of forget about. Pachuca left recently. I saw Omar Gonzalez send out an Instagram story saying they had a 15-hour flight to United Arab Emirates. So they are now they've already arrived. United Arab Emirates are going to be they're going to be taking on Wydad Casablanca. I probably mispronounced that. They're from Morocco. Naib, you've been following Pachuca a little bit. Do we see that? You look at the roster from Casablanca, you see that's mostly made up of Moroccan players. Can we expect Pachuca to advance here? I think that we should be expecting this to go into the next round, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that fear, though, that when this tournament comes along and the team doesn't have, the Pachuca hasn't been playing for the last 2 weeks, I would say. Yeah. And it wasn't the most phenomenal of seasons for Pachuca, really inconsistent in the back, I would say. There's fears that they could all break apart, if they have a bad day against this team from Casablanca. It could be a result that no one expected. But then again, it's just this idea that sometimes Liga MX clubs are not able to control or comprehend the favoritism issue, which is really something that always happens with Mexican sides. Even the national team is when the Mexican national team is a favorite in a certain game, it tends to overcomplicate things a little bit too much. And I think you see that at club level. But then again, I think, and then, we got to see how Eddie Gutierrez is doing for Pachuca, left with a serious injury in the last game against Atlas. And so I don't know what level Guti will be in. And if Guti's not at 100%, that's a huge void in Pachuca's midfield. Of course, Keisuke Honda will be there, Franco Jara, Victor Guzman, who's, you can say he's been the revelation this season in Liga MX to a certain extent. So I think they have those players there available. But it's you can't just say that Pachuca is going to win this one. I think Pachuca will have a tough time getting the win. And if they do, they'll face Gremio, which it will not be an easy opponent, as we have seen, and how easy Gremio beat Lanús. So I mean, I think it could be not the happiest of moments for Pachuca, but you never know. Hopefully, they can surprise the world and make a deep run in this, which would be a huge advert for Liga MX. No, to see Pachuca go far, even reach the final, I think would be great for Liga MX.
They better do well. I'm waking up at like 4 something this Saturday, so that's all I'm saying. Tom, your thoughts on Pachuca in
No,
this Club World Cup?
no, same. I mean, Gremio is a very good team. I mean, Luan, Arthur, two players that have got big futures. I think pretty much everybody agrees on that. You saw the Copa Libertadores, and yeah, I agree. I think I spoke to the sporting director Marco Garces about the tournament a couple of weeks ago, and they've had some bad times at the Club World Cup Pachuca because they've been there quite a lot, and I think there's a kind of determination this time around that they want to get this right. But yeah, it's not easy because when was Pachuca's last game? 21st of it was 21st of November, and so there's a long time between games, and it's not easy. But we'll see. I don't have any hopes when it comes to Mexican teams in the Club World Cup because every year it seems to disappoint. But if Pachuca can get to that Real Madrid game, then yeah, it's something I think the institution deserves because I think I've said it quite a lot of times. But if Mexico had 20 clubs at the level of Pachuca, then the Mexican game would be extremely different, and I think for the better.
Yeah. No, I most definitely agree. Let's see what happens with Pachuca. We're we keeping a close eye on that. Of course, they'll be playing at least 2 matches because if they lose this match, which is the quarterfinal match, then I think they take part in the 5th place game, and then if they make it to the next one, they go to semifinal round, and if they lose that, they go. They're at least guaranteed a couple of matches. So let's see what happens to Pachuca in the Club World Cup. We'll be keeping a close eye on them and seeing what they do. All right, guys. So for the next section, we're actually going to have. He should be joining soon. It's kind of a thank you to our patrons on the Patreon page. One of our goals was after we reached, I believe it was 25 or 50. We'll be adding more of you guys on as a thank you to those who have donated and contributed to the show. We're having you join the show. We're gonna have a Jorge Flores or Jesus Flores. He'll be joining us. I think he should be joining us quite soon. And it's just once again, it's just our way of saying thank you for helping our Patreon page. And by the way, if you guys haven't already checked out our Patreon page, go to patreon.com/The Mexican Soccer Show, and that's where you can donate. Jesus, you there? Hello?
Yeah, hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, man. How you doing,
Yeah,
man?
we can hear you, Jesus.
Welcome to the Mexican
Good,
Soccer
hey.
Show.
Hey, buenas noches, Cesar, Naib, Tom. Thank you for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
I like that cap, Jesus. You already got a fan.
Yep. Shout out Houston. I'm actually from Chicago, so I'm probably going to be turning some heads, but just thought I'd show the Houston Astros some love. So,
dude, well, Jesus, thank you once again for being a member of our Patreon. And we got to ask you, man, I mean, you're here joining the podcast. I'm going to ask you, who cares? You know what? Who cares what Tom says? Who cares what Naive says? I've heard enough from them, man. Like, as a fan, how you feeling about Mexico's group for the World Cup, Group F?
I mean, I think initially I felt the same way probably a lot of people felt when Maradona drew the ball and it was Group F with Germany. I was like, please don't let it be Mexico. Please don't let it be Mexico. And of course, Mexico. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's really going to be a tough group. And then you get Sweden, you got South Korea. Initially you're kind of just disappointed. You kind of wish you'd be in Group A. And, I mean, I don't think there's going to be any groups of death going forward with the World Cup draw, kind of given how now they're ranking all of the teams by their FIFA ranking rather than Confederation. So, it's going to be really interesting as a fan of what Osorio is doing. I really like
wow. You're a fan.
I am.
You're one of the few, man. You're one of the few.
I am. I know. I know I'm in the minority, but I think it's going to be a really interesting group for Osorio because you guys touched upon this in the Countdown to Russia podcast. It's 3 very distinct styles of play. Germany, very disciplined, going to be going for possession, going to try to just do the same thing they did at the Confederations Cup. Sweden, a team that has height, it's going to be compact, try to be defensive. Korea's got the speed, and big fan of what Heung-min Son's been doing at Tottenham. So I think there's a lot of hypotheticals, and I think this is a perfect group for Osorio to kind of just showcase how big of a student he is of the game.
Yeah. Well, you're here on the podcast. We want to right now. This is going on the record. It's going on the record. I know we're not even in 2018 yet. Where is Mexico going to finish? Where is Mexico going to finish the next World Cup, man?
Oh man, I'd love to say quarterfinals, but it just seems like it's round of 16. I mean, anything can happen. It looks like it'll probably be Brazil if Mexico finishes second place, but I mean, it really does feel like just round of 16. I mean, until they go somewhere. I still think Mexico's a few pieces away. My biggest worry really is less the draw and more just the form of these players right now. You guys have touched upon just, Diego Reyes, Miguel Layun, Hector Moreno. It's very alarming to see them on the bench, and these are really key players for El Tri. So unless something major happens in January, I think right now you have to say kind of round of 16, and let's just hope that something kind of happens with these players and they make moves and they get some playing time and are in great form going into the World Cup.
Yeah, no, man, that's an excellent point.
At least today we saw Chicharito smile in the training session over there.
Yeah, there you go. We saw him smile there.
We got something, at least some good hopes.
You know what I learned today is I know he does his little Santa Cross, whatnot before the game. He did that before training. I was like, dude, you do that. That's pretty crazy. You do that every single time you got into training.
It's David Moyes, man. It's David Moyes.
It's David Moyes. Well, Jesus, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any quick questions for? I know you probably don't care about me, but for Naive or for Tom?
No, I really appreciate it. As I said, I wasn't expecting the email to come about. I just want to say kind of, mil gracias. Thank you guys for doing what you guys are doing. I've been a fan for about 4 years now. I was really looking for just a place where I can find English language content for El Tri, and I gravitated towards your guys' show. I follow you guys on Twitter. I follow you guys, what you guys do for FootMex Nation and ESPN and all these things. So just thank you and keep doing what you guys are doing.
Of course, man.
Thank you, Jesus, for following us.
Yeah, and Jesus, quick prediction for the Liga MX final.
Yeah. I think it's going to be close, especially with Aviles' injury. I think if Hurtado's out, I think I have to go Tigres. I really like their front three with Vargas, Valencia, and Gignac a little better, especially if against Hurtado's out. So I would say if Hurtado's out, I think Tigres wins by 1 goal, maybe a 4-3 aggregate. I mean, there's no home field advantage really, so we'll see how it goes.
And another quick question, because on my Twitter, if I write something good about Osorio, guaranteed somebody writes a comment. And I'm I don't think I'm a kind of I like what he's doing with the Mexican national team because I follow him around a lot, and you see what's going on behind the scenes as well. And you see, for me, from my point of view, I think there's something going on, something a bit special. You know what I mean? Whether that's going to play out on the field, I don't know. We don't know. This World Cup is going to be very tight. For me, the group's going to be very tight. Mexico could go through to the quarterfinal. They could go out the group stage. I mean, it depends on a lot of circumstances. But from your point of view, as a Mexico fan, obviously you know a lot about the game. Like what? And I imagine you got friends who absolutely hate Osorio. But like, what do you say to those people who what have you seen in Osorio that other people maybe haven't?
I mean, I just look at really the CONCACAF qualifying cup. I mean, you go back 4 years ago. Again, I mean, it was dark times. There was an actual legitimate worry that we were not going to make the World Cup, and here comes Osorio, and he just breezed through it. I understand, there's a 7-0 Chile, there's a 4-1 loss to Germany. I get that, but I don't know. It's just good to see Mexico play a style. I see a style under Osorio. I see a team that goes out there and attacks, that wants to dominate time of possession. Yes, there's still some question marks on the defense, but I just like what Osorio's doing, and I like that he's bringing in the mental coach. He's got everyone on the same page. The players seem to like him. it's just a vast difference from just the cycle of coaches that Mexico kind of just brings in and brings out and expects results, expects everything. So Osorio just seems to be bringing, at least in my opinion, a calm presence and someone who can really study the game and bring together these players and play a distinct style.
Well,
Good
Jesus,
stuff.
before we let you,
What's your Twitter?
oh yeah, Tom, you beat me too, man. I was gonna
man.
ask him the question.
What the ball, man? What the hell?
Honestly, I mean, I only have the Twitter just to follow you guys and a few other people, but I don't even really know my Twitter handle. I think it's Mr. J. Flores on Twitter. Yeah, and I'll tweet you guys again. Mil gracias for having me on. I really appreciate it. You know, hopefully I'm the first of many people to kind of come on, and I hope I didn't screw up my chances.
No,
Thanks
no,
so
no,
much.
you did great.
You left the bar high, Jesus.
Thanks, Nadim.
All right, thanks, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Good night. Thanks, Jesus.
All right, so
Good
Tom,
stuff.
good stuff. As Tom would say, although I think I think
say.
I think we give you a hard time, and then you stop saying it. But you just said it again there. Well, once again, I mean, just talk about the Patreon page. Thank you once again to Jesus and others who contribute to our Patreon page. We randomly select, and we're gonna randomly select another person. Jason says he just he found another person that'll be joining hopefully next Monday show. And once again, if you want to check out our Patreon page, it's patreon.com/the Mexican Soccer Show. I mean, it's for those who not only just want the live Monday show, but we're also every week, me, Tom, and Naib, we're going to be doing an L3 specific podcast, the Countdown to Russia podcast. And as I mentioned other times before, we want this to be the definitive guide. We know it is the definitive guide. No one else is going into the details, whether it be the tactics, whether it be Rafa Marquez, whether it be, I'm sure we're going to probably spend one episode just talking only about Chicharito. I'm not sure when it's going to be, but I'm sure we're going to have one episode where we only talk about that guy. There's no other podcast that talks about in detail about L3 more so than the Countdown to Russia podcast. And guys, anything you guys want to talk about quickly about that Countdown to Russia podcast? Because obviously we're going to have another one coming out this week. But anything that you guys want to talk about, it doesn't have to be about the topic, but just about the Patreon page or the Countdown to Russia pod.
No, just I think it's enjoyable doing it, just talking exclusively about the Mexican national team, and it's great for Jesus to come on there, and I know sometimes you don't get any feedback. It's good to know at least one person, like what you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Naib, anything about our podcast or whatnot, or are you going to be trying to find another fan out there to make you feel like you're not going crazy about some of the things that you're saying on Twitter? Just
No, I think like what Tom says. I mean, I think it's nice when you see that feedback and when you can sort of interact with the followers that you have, because it's like thousands and thousands. But with this with the Countdown to Russia, I mean, we're going specifically with each team. We correspondence. I'm learning my Korean. So I mean, I'm working on that stuff, and
I'm learning Swedish. I'm learning Swedish on Duolingo right now, man. I know poike means boy. Boom. I'm done. I'm set. I learned Swedish.
So I mean, there's all those details that we're gonna go into. But it'll be interesting to see exactly following the latest developments, and this winter transfer window is gonna be really important. No, yeah. and would it be a shocker to see a player that's currently in Europe head back to Mexico because of the lack of playing time? Could that potentially happen? And would that be beneficial? Or because at this point, the options are really is either you play or not. And what do you need? You need playing time. So if that's gonna only happen in Mexico, I think you gotta accept it.
Yeah. Tom, anything else you want to add before we close out the show?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. Jesus could have basically closed it out for us. He did a great job. Also, once again, shout out to Jesus. He basically sounded like a regular podcast member right there. It was pretty impressive. I was quite impressed.
I was like, what are we doing?
All right. Well, once again, guys, keep an eye on this. Not only just the Count to Russia podcast, but obviously the big thing is the final between Monterrey and Tigres. That's something I'm thrilled for. I mean, it's just that's the one final we all want to see. I'm excited for it, and thank you all to everyone who watched this. Thank you everyone also on the YouTube chat. I didn't get a chance to really interact that much with the chat, but that's something I'll try to do a little bit more so next time. And yeah, we'll see you on the next edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. Have a good night, guys.
Ciao, ciao.